So imagine you're just sitting on your couch on a Sunday afternoon.
Right, highly relatable.
Yeah, and you're watching a Formula One race in crisp 4K high definition. You've got a bowl of chips. You're perfectly comfortable. The climate control is set to a breezy 70 degrees, and you're just watching these drivers take hairpin turns at like 200 miles an hour.
Sounds like a pretty ideal setup,
It
honestly.
is. But from that entirely safe, detached vantage point, your brain starts doing this really funny thing. You watch the telemetry on the screen and you think, if I just brake a fraction of a second later on that corner, I could probably handle that.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there. The armchair quarterback syndrome.
Exactly. It feels incredibly logical in the moment. But then imagine someone actually drops you into the cockpit of a real F1 car. They strap you into a 5-point harness, the lights go out, the engine screams, and you realize, wait, I have absolutely no idea what any of the 35 buttons on the steering wheel do.
Yeah, and the brake pedal requires like 200 pounds of pressure just to engage.
Right. And the G-force is actively trying to rip your head right off your neck.
Because the distance between observing a high-velocity physical event and actually executing it, well, it's not just a gap. It's an entirely different universe.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to explore that massive, sometimes dangerous divide between theoretical knowledge and brutal physical reality.
And we're using a pretty extreme example to do it.
Extreme doesn't even cover it. The real-world scenario from our sources today honestly reads like a comedy movie script. We are looking at a man named Hector Lopez.
Right.
According to the documentation, Hector entered an actual MMA tournament. But here is the staggering catch. He stepped into that steel cage with absolutely zero training and zero experience.
Which, I mean, that is difficult to even conceptualize if you understand the environment Hector's actually walking into.
Yeah, it's not a joke.
Not at all. An MMA tournament is a highly competitive, regulated, and frankly, inherently violent space. You have athletes actively trying to impose their physical will on another human being to the point of submission or unconsciousness.
Right, you can't just wing it.
You really can't. It's a space that demands profound physical conditioning and technical mastery just to survive, let alone win.
Okay, so let's unpack this for a second, because I just don't buy that someone signs a waiver, puts on a mouthpiece and 4-ounce gloves, and walks down an aisle to fight another human being with literally zero preparation. I mean, he had to have done something, right? Sparred in his garage with a buddy.
You would think so.
Or like taken a local self-defense seminar. Nobody just walks off the street into a cage.
Well, the sources are remarkably explicit about this. Hector's only knowledge of fighting, his entire combat database, came strictly from watching the UFC on television.
Wait, really? Just watching TV?
Just hours logged as a spectator. He had no martial arts background, no gym affiliation, zero physical training camp. His preparation was entirely observational.
That is insane. I mean, this is like binge watching Gordon Ramsay shows and then walking into a Michelin-starred kitchen expecting to run the dinner service.
That's a great analogy.
But except in a kitchen, a bad dish doesn't physically hit you in the face. How does a sane person make that leap? Sitting on a couch watching pay-per-views does not give you cardiovascular endurance.
No, it definitely doesn't.
And it doesn't harden your chin. So is this just a case of profound arrogance, or is there something else happening when we watch elite athletes on the screen?
What's fascinating here is that it actually has less to do with arrogance and much more to do with a deeply ingrained neurobiological mechanism.
Yeah.
One that gets totally hijacked by modern media.
Okay, hijack how?
Well, when you sit on your couch and watch a high-level MMA fight in high definition, you are engaging what are called mirror neurons.
Mirror neurons.
Yeah. These are specialized cells in the brain that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe that same action performed by someone else.
Oh, wow. So your brain is literally copying them.
Exactly. On a micro level, your brain is simulating the experience of throwing a jab, pivoting a foot, or securing a chokehold.
So the brain is running this background simulation of the physical event. It's mapping the geometry of the fight, but it's keeping the physical body completely out of the loop.
Right. The brain maps the cognitive geometry, but it entirely lacks the proprioceptive feedback.
Proprioceptive feedback. What does that mean exactly?
So proprioception is your body's ability to sense its movement, action, and location. When you watch UFC on television, the broadcast completely filters out the sensory reality of the event.
Because you can't feel it through the screen.
Exactly. The commentators, who are often experts themselves, break the chaos down into biomechanical steps. They say things like, well, he needs to underhook the arm, shift his hips, and apply pressure.
Right. It makes it sound like a solvable math equation, or like putting together a piece of IKEA furniture. Just follow step A, then step B.
Precisely. Television removes the friction of reality. You don't feel the fact that the opponent's arm is slick with sweat and actively resisting with 200 pounds of force.
Yeah. Or that your own muscles are screaming.
Right, you don't feel the lactic acid building in your own shoulders.
Yeah.
Because the brain doesn't receive that sensory data, the exhaustion, the pain, the resistance, it logs the visual information and just assumes the physical execution will be just as fluid as the visual processing.
So it tricks you into thinking you've got it down,
It really does. This is actually the physiological root of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
which is where a person's lack of knowledge prevents them from recognizing their own incompetence, right?
Exactly.
But usually we apply Dunning-Kruger to intellectual pursuits, like someone thinking they can run a massive corporation just because they read a business book on a flight. This is physical.
Yeah, but the principle scales to the physical world perfectly when the somatic map is empty. Hector's cognitive map was full of high-definition replays and expert commentary.
He knew what an armbar looked like. He knew what a knockout looked like. But muscle memory, the actual ability to execute those movements under duress, is the result of thousands of physical repetitions. Repetitions that literally altered the neural pathways in your motor cortex.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because if Hector's brain thinks it has solved the math equation of fighting, the glaring issue is that he's about to step into a cage where the math actively fights back.
Oh, it fights back hard.
And the sources reveal who he is facing. Hector didn't just draw another novice who watched TV. He went up against fighters representing gyms notorious for growing Irish fighters.
Right, the pedigree is insane.
The sources specifically compare them to the lineage of Conor McGregor. We are talking about an elite combat pedigree. We aren't just talking about a local amateur with a few months of boxing.
No, not at all.
So how does a gym environment that produces McGregor-style Irish fighters fundamentally differ from a guy shadowboxing in his living room? Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, a high-pedigree combat gym is an institution of physical reality. Gyms that produce elite fighters, particularly the Irish boxing and MMA gyms noted in your sources, they embody a systematized culture of hardened combat.
It's not just a hobby for them.
No, it's their entire life.
Yeah.
They are entirely focused on bridging the gap between conscious thought and autonomic reflex.
What does that process actually look like neurologically? Because clearly, it's not just about doing some push-ups and hitting a heavy bag until you're tired.
No, it's about myelination.
Myelination.
Yes, so when an elite fighter drills a specific combination, say, slipping a punch and firing a countercross, they do it 10,000 times.
Wow.
And every time they execute that movement, the brain wraps a fatty substance called myelin around the nerve fibers involved.
Yeah.
Myelin acts kind of like the insulation on a copper wire.
Okay, so it speeds up the connection.
Exactly. It makes the electrical signal travel significantly faster and more efficiently. After thousands of reps, that movement bypasses the prefrontal cortex, which is the conscious thinking part of the brain, and becomes a pure autonomic reflex.
So the fighter isn't thinking, oh, I see his shoulder move, I should probably move my head to the left. The body just moves before the conscious brain even registers